Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. On the agenda tonight, we're going back to the early 1990s to take a look at Tony Rice, and he's going to be performing Freeborn Man. So let's get Tony up on screen and see how he gets on.
Some 20 odd years ago, I ran away for the first time. When I was only 4 years old, I'm a freeborn man. My home's on my back. I know every inch of highway, every foot of back road, never mind a railroad track. Cincinnati, a little woman in San Antonio. Well, I always loved the girl next door, but any place is home. I'm a freeborn man. My home's on my back. I know every inch of highway, every foot of back road, every mile of railroad track. Guitar and turned an old tote sign. Well, I hopped it about 200 times, but I always got it back. I'm a freeborn man. My home is on my back. I know every inch of highway, every foot of back road, every mile of railroad track.
I'm just going to jump in here. As always, the link to this video is going to be in the description below, so you guys can click on that in order to watch it the whole way through without me interrupting. But there is so much talent on stage here. It's mind-blowing the amount of technical ability we've got going on, because with bluegrass, and especially the way that Tony Rice used to play, having that alternate picked ability, just all flat picked, so accurate, but such tempo in there. And this is the thing about country music, bluegrass, that I always mention, having that technical ability in the right hand, in the rhythm hand, but then also synchronizing that up with the left hand in order to get all of these runs so concise all the time. And we have that across the whole stage here. Just taking a look at Tony's technique, because I have featured him on the channel once before, but it was a long time ago, and it's great to be able to feature him again with a few more subscribers that have joined in on the channel. But his right hand technique with the alternate picking is one of those things that's so organized, and the movement is minimal in order to keep that accuracy and that speed up. He's not covering a hell of a lot of distance. And the interesting thing is that that goes for his rhythm playing as well. Because the rhythm is so quick, it's an up-tempo number, as bluegrass tends to be. But having that short distance that he's covering with the right hand means that he can strum the guitar more quickly, and he's covering less strings. This is something that does pop up when people are learning to play rhythm with the right hand, and they might want to throw in a little bit of double time strumming, but then they struggle to get the speed in that right hand, purely because they are strumming with exactly the same arc that they do with their slow strumming, so that they're covering more distance. And as you can imagine, the shorter distance you cover, the faster you'll be able to cover that distance. So if you really shorten your downstroke and your upstroke, you'll be able to get that double time sound and that double time speed, because you're just not covering the same distance as you are when you're going half time. So it's something that you'll be able to see here with Tony's playing with the right hand, how small that arc is with his rhythm, and the fact that he's only really covering the middle strings of the guitar. Talking about that technique that Tony has, the amount of wrist rotation that's involved as well. You can watch that right hand of Tony's and see how he gets that speed, not through movement of the arm, but rotation of the wrist. And this is also something that, unfortunately, in 2014, he was diagnosed with epicondylitis, which is also known as tennis elbow. And it restricted his playing, obviously, meaning that he couldn't play live to the same level. And he did say that if he was ever going to perform live again, he wanted to be at the same level, if not better, than he used to play, in order to be able to give people the full artistry that he wants. So having a look at that right hand, if there is any weakness in that elbow, the amount of rotation in the wrist is going to be a problem with that, because you won't see Tony playing with a really stiff arm moving up and down, having a wide arc that you will see with other players when they are mostly just strumming chords. But there's so much that Tony does with his playing, involving root notes of chords and lead notes at the same time, going off into alternate picked runs. You can see in this performance the amount of rotation and ability that Tony had with the right hand. So it's that rotation of the wrist that not only is giving Tony his speed with his rhythm, but also his lead playing, because that tiny rotation will make it possible to jump from one string to the next with alternate picking with most ease and not catch other strings accidentally. Obviously, it's years and years of practice in order to get it down to the level that Tony has. Just to give a quick shout out to the musicians on stage here, because we have Mark O'Connor on fiddle, and this video is from his channel, so that's where you will be taken to if you click on the link in the description below. We've also got Baylor Fleck on banjo, and Mark Schatz on bass, and Sam Bush is on mandolin, and we also have Jerry Douglas on the dobro, so we can look forward to a solo from Jerry later on in this performance. This kind of stuff takes years and years and years of practice, and anybody that plays guitar will know that once you start playing alternate picked runs, building up the speed and getting it consistent and getting it synchronized is not something that you can do in a couple of weeks. It takes years to build up that muscle memory. So top playing across the board here, but let's get back into this performance.
go. I ran away for the first time and I was only 4 years old. I'm a freeborn man. I hold this on my mind. I know every inch of highway, every foot of back road, every mile of railroad track.
And there we have it. Just another thing to throw in there about the playing on stage and Tony's playing as well, because when he's playing these bluegrass lines, he'll occasionally throw in a line or two that you're not expecting that just has that little hint of jazz in there. And it's something that is so well worked into the lead lines that it just sits in there. And this is something that Tony Rice could do. Just throw in so many different lines that weren't necessarily pure bluegrass playing in G. This is capoed on the 2nd fret, so it means that we're actually in A, but we've still got the G shape. That is what's being played here with all those traditional bluegrass runs that are going on. But this is the thing, Tony will just catch you off guard for half a bar, maybe, with a little bit of jazz thrown in there. And this is something that around the mid-70s he studied under John Carlini, who showed him jazz theory and started to teach him different lines from jazz, but also the way that Tony implemented that knowledge into bluegrass. It's not an easy thing to suddenly start blending genres together and to get it to sound natural, like it belongs there. But that's certainly something that Tony does when in that solo that we just heard, for example, he's got that chromaticism in there that sounds like it should be in there. Just to quickly explain chromaticism, because it's when you play every single note available to you in any key. So if we're starting in G, we play G, and then you literally play every note that exists until you get to G an octave higher. And that is called a chromatic scale. So just playing every single note. But it's something that is implemented, especially in jazz, throwing together long sequences of chromatics and getting chromaticism in your playing is something that's going to start to make it sound more jazzy. But like I said, Tony just throws it in there seamlessly, so you're not even questioning it. You're just listening to not only the melodic content in there, the interesting content because it's being taken to a slightly different place, but the execution of it on the fretboard is faultless. So, also, talking about Jerry Douglas, this is one of those videos that could go on all year because of the talent on stage. Just listen to that solo that he laid down. The amount of synchronicity going on with the right hand, the sequences, we get a great close-up of what Jerry's going through with that right hand, but also the control of the slide with the left and the vibrato that he puts on that slide. It's all in there. If you want to see Jerry in action on this channel, he's playing with Alison Krauss. I did a video on Alison not so long ago, so you can go and check out that video for more of Jerry's playing. Another thing that we haven't even mentioned yet is the vocal ability that Tony had, because he's got that classic country twang in there, and there isn't a great deal, if any, vibrato on his vocal. So it means that his accuracy pitch-wise has to be spot on, and just starting the song off, he is so accurate with his pitch, and it has such a storytelling quality to it as well, and it's really easy to listen to. Tony's delivery vocally is unique in itself. I just want to add in a little bit of Tony's story and his career, because I didn't get the chance to do that on the first video when I did feature Tony. So when he started to play, his father Herb taught him how to play bluegrass, and I think this is something that just happens with the genre of people just getting together and getting a banjo out and a guitar, and within the family just starting to pick. And it's something that certainly went through the Rice family, because his brothers learned to play as well, and they were influenced by the LA players. One of these bands were called the Kentucky Colonels, and that was led by Roland and Clarence White. And Clarence White was a huge influence on Tony with his playing, and this would have been when Tony was in his teenage years. They also crossed paths with other artists at the time, Ry Cooder, Herb Pedersen and Chris Hillman, so they were getting a lot of exposure to a lot of other players, but like I said, it seems to be that kind of genre where everybody's paths cross at some point. In 1970, Tony moved to Kentucky, and this would have been when he was 19 years of age. He joined up with the Bluegrass Alliance, and shortly after that, joined up with J.D. Crow's New South, and the New South were seen as one of the best and most progressive bluegrass groups of the time. They did go on to add electronic instruments, and this is something that Tony wasn't a great fan of. He really liked just playing acoustically, and they recorded the album J.D. Crow and the New South. That was an acoustic album, and it was Rounder Records' top-selling album up to that point, so it was massively successful, and it had Jerry Douglas on the dobro and also Bobby Sloan on bass and fiddle. It was around this time that he met David Grisman, and David had played with Red Allen in the 1960s, and he was blending different styles, jazz and classical, into bluegrass, and this is something that really did interest Tony. So Tony moved to California, he joined David's all-instrumental band, and started to get into chord theory and expanding his playing beyond what he had learned previously, and adding these different styles in there. This is also the same time that he got involved with John Carlini, that I mentioned earlier, starting to study music theory and jazz. In 1977, they released the David Grisman Quintet's debut album, and that is considered a landmark of acoustic string band music. In 1978 is when Tony started Tony Rice Unit, and in 1980 he started the Bluegrass Album Band, and all of these things were happening at the same time, as well as Tony's solo material and solo albums that he was recording. He also did collaborations with so many different artists, including Ricky Skaggs in 1980, and that was called Skaggs and Rice. So Tony was a very busy guy in the 70s, the 80s and the 90s. Unfortunately, in 1994, he was diagnosed with muscle tension dysphonia, which is when the muscles around the voice box and the larynx aren't controllable. They start to contract without being told to contract. So, of course, this means that singing is impossible. So, unfortunately, Tony had to stop the vocals in 1994. And like I mentioned, in 2014, he had that lateral epicondylitis, which was tennis elbow, which then affected his guitar playing. It's great to have a look back at a video like this with Tony Rice in full flow, but also surrounded by such talent on stage. It is something that will definitely fly under the radar if you don't play the guitar or the fiddle or banjo or mandolin, in order to appreciate the level of artistry but also practice that has gone into this, because it's not something that just comes overnight. It is years and years and years of dedicated practice and dedication to the craft of playing bluegrass. And when we look at Tony also blending in seamlessly those other styles, it just pushes it to a different level. But thank you guys so much for suggesting this video for me to take a look at, and keep those suggestions coming in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the next one.